Good morning, students. We are going to see the last part of third chapter, and we have road accidents, train accidents, and fire accidents, and then food poisoning. So these are the topics that we are going to see today. First, we'll see about road accidents. So there are different causes of road accidents. One is the driving, the other is the type of road. So both can cause accidents. If the roads are very having heavy traffic, or if the people who are driving is driving rashly, or if the roads are not constructed properly, these are the common causes of accidents. So usually in state highways, people going in trucks, they get into accidents because usually truck drivers do not sleep in the night, they drive continuously. So to overcome this problem, and even if there is accident, what is the government has done is they have installed 108 ambulances and response centers all through the highways all over India. So whenever there is a accident, especially these 108 ambulances are stationed near places with high frequency of accidents. You all know that even I had an accident in the car. So the 108 ambulance was right next to the place where we had the accident. So immediately within 3 minutes we were inside the ambulance. So that is the advantage of having an ambulance. Immediately on the highway, in regular intervals, the ambulances are placed, and on the highway itself there is telephones which you can see when you go by car or bus. This is used for communicating to the ambulance. So usually the drivers who drive the cars are the ones who or the two-wheelers are the ones who are injured, because most times only one person goes, and sometimes when the passengers are going, they can also be injured. The first accident in the world happened in 1896 on August 17th, when a person called Bridget Driscoll was killed when a car hit him in the city of London. Okay, so let us see what are the major reasons for road accidents or causes. One is negligence in driving. Negligence means carelessness. So when people drive carelessly, their accidents can happen. Then drunken driving, high speed driving, and improper training for the drivers. So these are all common causes of accidents. Then the overlooking the other vehicles, that is, if a vehicle is coming in the opposite direction, the people are going fast and they can hit the vehicles. Then non-stop long distance driving. For example, people drive long distances, that can lead to accidents because they may not have slept or they may be tired, and these are some of the common causes of accidents. Then we'll see some things in detail, how the injuries happen when there is overspeed. When people drive very fast, what will happen is they will not be able to control the vehicles, and sometimes when it is raining or when it is slippery because of ice on the road, the person who's driving will not be able to control the vehicle, and the brakes may not work. So this can lead to serious accidents which can cause heavy injuries. Then people who drive two-wheelers, they usually drive without wearing a helmet, and this can lead to deaths and head injuries. And people who drive four-wheelers, they drive without wearing seat belts, and this can cause injuries and even death, because when they wear seat belt, it prevents the person from going forward in momentum. In physics you would have studied momentum, and when the car is stopped suddenly due to an accident, if there is no seat belt, then they will go and hit and go through the window, or their head will hit the roof, and this can lead to deaths. Then other reason is people speaking on the cell phones when they are driving. These days we see a lot of people use cell phones, and many of them get in accidents because of this. And there are also people who do not follow the traffic rules, and in our country mainly all of the people who apply for license is given the license without any test. So this means that people do not know how to drive, what are the road rules to be followed. So these can lead to major accidents. And finally, because of low visibility, and especially in winter season and seasons where the fog is present, it reduces the visibility. People cannot see the what is on the road, so this leads to multiple collisions. For example, in Delhi and other places, even 50 or 60 vehicles will hit each other because of this kind of problem. So these are the common causes of accident. So these are the common causes. Sorry, I had a break to talk on the phone. So the next thing is prevention of road accidents. So the road accidents can be prevented if strict punishment is given by the government for any people who are driving fast or drunken driving or driving without license. So these are the things that you can do to prevent people from going on the road without knowing how to drive. Then the next thing is, all heavy vehicles, especially the buses and trucks, should have speed controllers. They are also called speed governors, and they should be tamper proof. Tamper proof means nobody can meddle with it and change it. What happens is, all the schools, they fix these speed controllers in the vehicles, but the drivers, they manipulate and make it to stop, and then they drive fast. So this should be avoided. Then there should be a rule that two-wheelers should not go beyond 50 to 70 kilometers, because beyond that speed they will not have control over the vehicle and it can lead to accidents. And it should also be ensured that all the people follow the road rules carefully. Even people walking on the road, they should follow the road rules. If they cross the road suddenly, what will happen? People who are driving, they will lose control, and they will turn and hit other vehicles, or they will skid and fall on the ground. So if everybody knows the road rules and follow it correctly, and if there is severe punishment if they do not follow road rules, then accidents can be prevented. Also, the government should ensure that the roads are good and signals and all the other things related to the roads are proper. That will help to prevent accidents. Then we should also look at the healthcare costs which occur because of accidents. When people who get injured in road accidents, we spend a lot of money from our country, in fact every country, and also from if they do not have an insurance, the individual spends a lot of money from their pocket. So the cost of healthcare for injured people during an accident is very high. That leads to loss of money for the person and also for the country unnecessarily. In fact, people say if you wear a helmet, that prevents direct and indirect costs to the society of so many thousands of rupees. So wearing a helmet so that you do not get head injury, because I as a person have treated people who have had head injuries due to two-wheeler accidents, and it is very pathetic to see people who suffer because they lose their memory, and it is indescribable. Only when you see those people who suffer from head injuries, you will understand what a head injury is. So to prevent that, wearing helmet will save the society money, as well as the individuals will be saved from a lot of trouble. There are a lot of NGOs that are working for road safety. Here I have given the names of the NGOs and their websites. If you are interested, you can look at that. Arrive Safe, India Together, International Road Federation, Headlight India, Save Love Foundation are some of the NGOs. So some of the methods in which the government overcomes or prevents accident is, they keep traffic personnel or traffic police at regular intervals in areas where there is heavy traffic, so that they are able to regulate the traffic, and that prevents accidents. And they also correct road alignments. When there is a bend, if you cannot see the opposite direction, then it is likely to cause accidents. If there is a sharp curve, or even if there is a road divider, if it's a very sharp curve, the vehicles can skid off the road. Then the road conditions need to be improved so that the traffic is smooth and the vehicles do not hit the potholes or the holes in the ground. Then parapet on the edge of the wall. In highways we see that both sides there are railings or parapet walls, so that will help to prevent accidents. Then adequate signboards, especially with reflective material. In the night time, if you drive with the high light, you will see that there is reflection from the road, that is a reflective material which is stuck, so that helps to guide the driver on how to go and where to go. So these indicators on the edge of the road, all this will help in preventing the accidents, and it will save life and property for the people and save a lot of money for the government also. So that is about the road accidents. Then we come to train accidents. See, train is one of the common ways in which people travel within the country, especially if you see in countries such as India, where population is very heavy. We have regular trains which go from one city to another city, but also we have suburban trains, or trains that move within the city from different places. Like example, in Chennai, from Park Station, Beach Station, we have electrical trains. So Mumbai and Chennai and other places, we have these trains, and also these days we have more metro trains. So these are all coming under the Indian Railways. So these trains can have accidents also. And Indian Railways is one of the largest railways in the world. We have 63,000 kilometers of railway tracks, and when accident is there, then it has to be immediately taken care of, and people have to be saved. So some of the common causes of train accidents in India are driver sleeping in the train, or driver using cell phone in the train, railway track has been damaged by bomb or earthquake or flood or other natural disasters, or even tsunamis. In fact, in Sri Lanka, in the 2006 tsunami, one whole train was swept away when it was going. So that can also be happen. And accidents at level crossing, in Karigiri we have a level crossing, that is a manned level crossing, that is somebody is there to stop the vehicles. But there are many hundreds of unmanned level crossings in India, that is the road goes over the railway track, but there is no people and no checkpost there, so that can lead to a lot of accidents. And animals crossing the tracks, in some areas wild animals like buffaloes and even elephants cross, and that can lead to accidents. And sometimes people put stones on the track that is sabotage, or people are terrorists or attacks, or some people put stones on the tracks, which can lead to train accidents. So we'll see the other causes of train accidents: natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, cyclones, landslides, snow avalanches, tsunami. Then train accident related to disaster is collision, when two trains go on the same track and hit each other. That can lead to a lot of deaths. Then trains which are going, suddenly there is a flash flood and the train gets stuck in the middle of the flood. Or derailment is very common, when the train goes off the track, the wheels go off the track, then the whole train can collapse, or some bogies can collapse. That can lead to a lot of deaths. Then train getting washed away, or the explosives or fire in the train. So these are some of the common causes of accidents in the train. And even man-made disasters like terrorism, sabotage. In the Mumbai attacks, the terrorists went to the railway station and started killing people inside the train and outside the train. So those kind of attacks, and some people set a train on fire. We've had so many issues of fire on trains. So these are some of the causes of train accidents. So again, this is the same thing. Other things which can happen is when people carry explosives on the train, or even firecrackers or inflammable material. So these can cause accidents in the train. Sometimes when the train is going inside a tunnel, the tunnel can collapse, or level crossing. So these common accidents are the ones that happen. So how do we overcome this? First thing is prevention. We have to ensure that we prevent these accidents. How do we prevent accidents? By ensuring people are trained properly, and the infrastructure is good, and safety measures are taken care of. Then once the train accident happens, we have to prepare for it and provide rescue, relief and rehabilitation. So how do we prepare for the accidents? So there are different levels in the government. We already studied in the first chapter about the central government, state government, and district disaster management. So each of these people have to manage. So the government provides financial support, the National Disaster Relief Force, armed forces or the army, and other agencies whenever there is an accident. So first thing they have to get done is capacity building. Capacity building is nothing but training. So when people are adequately trained on ways to handle disaster, then it will prevent accident, and it will also help to overcome the initial shock of accident, and people's lives can be saved. So all the engine drivers, people working in the signals, in the railways are adequately trained so that they prevent accidents. The next thing is the hospitals have to be prepared. In case there is an accident, then all the people are taken to the hospital. So railways have a lot of hospitals in major cities, so they handle the people affected, and also the medical personnel are prepared all the time for handling emergency situations. Then maintaining infrastructure, that is the buildings, the railway coaches, the engines, everything has to be maintained properly. See, even in our house, if some material we don't use for many days, then it does not work properly. So same way, the people who are in the railways, they make sure that infrastructure is maintained properly. Then the next thing is security department and the disaster management. Security personnel, these are the people who go in the uh, railway stations. There are security personnel going on the train, so they prevent any terrorists from attacking, or even thieves from doing damage to the property and people. And also in the railway station, they ensure that everybody is proper. So if they find anybody suspicious, they arrest them. So this is very important to prevent any disaster. Then disaster communication system is very important. Whenever there is a disaster, what happens is the information has to be passed on immediately, so that the first aid people, ambulance, fire safety, all of them can come immediately. So the communication system is developed, and so that disaster information flow and alert of the disaster is provided to everybody, and also to the media people, because every person in the country has a right to know about any accidents. And especially if there is an accident, people will die or people will have injury, and their family members who are watching the television and seeing that some accident has happened, they will be very worried. So the media is given information, and usually the railways dedicates 2 or 3 phone numbers, so that people who are traveling in the train, their relatives can contact the railway people and find out about the injured people's names and where they are admitted. If there is an accident, then the rescue and relief is very important. The railways have their own rescue and relief personnel, and they have equipment which can help in lifting the train and cutting through the train, because it's made of thick metal. And they also use the help of the fire and rescue people of the local, because the train is traveling from one place to another. Whichever area there is an accident or disaster, the local fire and rescue people are involved in cutting the trains and saving the people's lives. Also the National Disaster Rescue Force, they are also used to helping in rescuing people. If anybody is injured, then they are treated and rehabilitated. Railways provides compensation to all the people injured on their property because of their any accident on their property, either on the train or even on the platforms. So that is how the train disasters are dealt with. Next we come to fire accidents. Fire accident is very common. We see that fire can lead to a lot of death and injuries, and most countries, the fire personnel or the fire service, they are also involved in rescue. Even in India, whenever somebody falls into the well, or animal falls into the well, or anything happens, if people are caught in some place, so the fire people, they are involved not only in putting out the fire, but also in rescuing the people. So where can fire occur? Fire can occur in houses and also in industries. And the causes of fire is usually the electrical wiring fault and short circuit. So most of the industrial fires happen because of this reason, and even in houses it happens because of this reason. The other causes of fire is cigarette fire, open flame that is not supervised, lightning or heating system. If you live in a cold place, then you have a heating system, you have a heater inside the house that can cause this thing. Same way, when you have air conditioners, night time when you put the AC and sleep, you don't know when the fire will come. And use of flammable material, so all these are causes of fire. And prevention of fire is very important, because once the fire occurs, it damages property, it damages life, causes injury to the people. So main thing is to prevent fire. So we make sure that there are three things which are essential. We studied this in the forest fire also, wildfire also. Three things necessary when for a fire: one is the heat, the other is the oxygen, and the third is the fuel. So if you mix all three together, then there will surely be a fire. So we have to prevent fire by reducing heat and removing oxygen, or keeping fuel away. So this will prevent and also to put out a fire very quickly. So before the fire occurs in any place, any house, any industry, we should have a risk assessment. So we will be studying separately about risk assessment. So here in fire safety, what is the risk assessment? We have to see what are the risks involved, whether the wiring is proper, whether there is any inflammable material. So if there is any material, then we have to take extra care, precautions have to be taken. So in a plant or an industrial plant, what are the things that can cause fire and how to prevent them? We should ensure that all the work equipment are protected against catching fire or overheating. Even in hospitals, we use boilers, we use things which can cause heat. In physiotherapy, they use electrical equipment. Most of the things are electrical. So when the machine becomes overheated, it can lead to fires. So we have to reduce the heat or protect the equipment and regularly service the equipment. Then all buildings should have ventilation. So ventilation means when air is flowing through, the reduction in temperature will be there, and the smoke will go out very quickly. Even if there is any smoke, that will reduce the heat of the place. Then electrical equipment have to be regularly serviced, and if you see any spark or fire when you plug or whenever it is used, then it has to be discarded or repaired quickly. Then all heat producing equipment like burners, boilers, ovens, stoves have to be properly cleaned and maintained. Then maintenance program has to be there for all the equipment in an industry. Smoking area should be separate for smokers. Whether it is hospital or industrial area, they should have a separate place, and only in that place they should smoke. Then all flammable material like fuel and oxygen should be stored separately and handled properly. Other than this, how do we prepare for fire? We have to ensure that fire detection is available. That is, we have smoke detectors and fire detectors, which are machines. So whenever there is a rise in temperature, they will give an alarm. So this is present in all big buildings and hotels. So whenever the smoke detectors detect smoke, it gives an alarm and people rush out of the building. So this helps in reducing the risk to life and property, and to early detection of fire. So this is one of the most important things that is needed, and slowly this fire detection has to be installed in all the buildings. In western countries, developed countries, they are already there in all buildings. In India, only in industrial buildings, that too those buildings which were built in the last few years, they have this fire detection, but it should be present in all buildings. The next thing is safety equipment. So the safety equipment is a fire extinguisher, hose for water to put out the fire. These you would have seen in big hotels and other places, so hospitals also. So this should be available, and the government mandates that you should have more than one staircase if the building is upstairs, and there should be a fire escape. And people should also not use elevators or lifts when there is a fire, because suddenly the current will go off and the lift will get stuck. People inside the lift will suffocate to death. So people should always use the staircase when there is a fire if they are upstairs. And the building maintenance should be such that all the fire escape routes should be kept clear, and the route should be at least 1 meter wide so that many people can go. And fire safety standards have to be followed. The government fire safety certificates are given for buildings. Even for our own hospital, for each building we have a fire safety certificate. So they come and inspect and then give this certificate, and it is as per the Fire Safety Act, which we are going to see now. Other than this, for as preparation, training should be given to the people on use of fire extinguishers, regular mock drills to be done for all industries and hospitals, so that people are knowledgeable on how to use the fire extinguishers, what to do when there is a fire, how to escape, so that they will save their lives. The Fire Safety Act is an act that it's a law, so that helps to prevent fire hazard, and there are certain provisions in this law. It says that the fire department should give clearance for all high-rise buildings, residential areas, malls, so that they check whether there is enough protection for the people, whether if there is a fire accident people will be able to escape. So only then they give license for the building. Then it also ensures that oil, natural gas resources, hospitals, hostels and hotels, shopping buildings, or cinema theaters, stadiums, all this have their own firefighting equipment and personnel. That is, somebody within the institution should be ready with emergency protocols. When immediately after a fire is there, they should rush and try to put out the fire. In the meantime, somebody will call the fire safety people, they will also come. So all big buildings should have their own fire safety protection people and equipment, and that will help in reducing risk to life and property. Then the fire services have a emergency fire service number, which is 101, and the fire services also, the fire service people also should have good equipment. They should have good vehicles that will come fast to the venue, and they should have good hose for water. Then they should also have powered lifts. You would have seen on TV or movies, whenever there is a fire in the high rise building, they are able to lift the equipment to a higher area, so that they are able to save the people and also to put water to put out the fire. And just like hospital people, we are using personal protective equipment during coronavirus, the fire safety people also should have their own personal protective equipment, mask, they should have helmets, they should have dress which is fire resistant, and also oxygen supply, so that they can breathe in case they are going into area filled with smoke. And they should also be trained personnel with good communication equipment. So all these are important for the fire people. We'll just see a list of major fire accidents that have happened in India. In December 1995, a fire broke out at a school in Haryana, killing 442 people. In 1997, in a Baripada congregation for a religious festival in Orissa, 180 people were killed. In Puttingal in Kerala, during a fireworks display, crackers, they were bursting during a temple so 111 people were killed. That was recently in 2016 or something. Then in Kumbakonam in 2004, 94 children were killed. I remember this, when they were in a thatched roof. So the kitchen, they were cooking midday meals, and the thatched roof caught fire and 94 children died. And other than this, so many more children were burnt and injured. Then in Delhi, 59 people were killed in the Upahar cinema. There was a cinema theatre where there was a fire and 59 people were killed. And in Kolkata, there was a hospital called AMRI hospital, and when they had a fire, 89 people were killed. So these are some of the major accidents in different areas: religious congregations, schools, cinema theatres, hospitals. So these are the common areas where a lot of people will die if there is a fire. So these areas should have fire protection prevention methods. Okay, so now we'll go to the final topic in this chapter, which is food poisoning. So what is food poisoning? The food that we eat, when it gets spoiled, or when some other germ like a bacteria, virus or fungus grows in it, or when some animals like lizards, rats or snakes fall into the food, then it can lead to food poisoning. So food poisoning can be caused by virus, bacteria or harmful other germs, and poor hygiene. So these are the common reasons for food poisoning. So what are the symptoms of food poisoning? What happens when a person has food poisoning? the person will have nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach pain. So these are the common signs and symptoms of food poisoning. And when it is not treated, what will happen? Sometimes the people can even die because of dehydration. So immediate treatment is needed for people who suffer from food poisoning. And usually the younger people, less than 5 years or 10 years, and the older people more than 60 or 70 years, they are the ones who are severely affected because of food poisoning. And if there is proper hygiene in the cooking of the food, then the chances of food poisoning can be reduced. So preservation methods, storage methods, that is, if you have meat like chicken or mutton, then it has to be kept in the freezer. If you keep it outside, or if you keep it in the less than temperature in the fridge for a long time, then bacteria can grow in it and cause food poisoning. So like that, preservation and storage is very important. Same way, handling of food, people should wear gloves, especially when they are in the hotels, when they are handling food. Within your house it's okay, because we are clean in our house, but in the hotels people may not be clean, so they have to wear gloves. And they also, you would have seen in hotels, people wear head covers, because hair can fall into the food. This can also lead to food poisoning. So people should know about the causes of food poisoning, so that they take care in handling and storage of food, so that food poisoning can be prevented. Good hygiene is important. So what are the common causes? There are so many bacteria and other germs which can lead to food poisoning. One is E. coli. E. coli is commonly present in the human intestine normally, even without this thing. But when it is when some strains, like some genes, you can say, of this kind of bacteria, can cause diarrhea, abdominal pain, and fever. So if there is severe this thing, then diarrhea can lead to dehydration and even kidney failure. Salmonella is a common thing causing food poisoning. Especially you see this in Western countries. So when people from UK and US, they come to India, they are not able to eat our food, because in our country the hygiene standards are a little lesser, and we are used to more bacteria in our food. But their stomachs are not used to this, because they are very hygienic, and in their climate they do not have some bacteria. So when they eat our food, it leads to food poisoning. Salmonella is one common thing which leads to severe gastritis, and this can go in the bloodstream also and cause typhoid fever. So this is commonly seen in dairy products, eggs, as well as poultry products. Okay, then the other things are Campylobacter, Listeria, all this in different foods they will grow, and Shigella. I'm not going in detail in each of this, because they are all just different this thing. They almost all of them cause vomiting, nausea, and they lead to diarrhea. Only thing you should know, which food they grow in, and where it is commonly present. Okay, Shigella leads to 100,000, 1 lakh to 6 lakh deaths per year in Africa and South Asia. Then norovirus, rotavirus. Now rotavirus is very important, because it causes 37% of all child deaths from diarrhea. You know, if you go to any hospital in India, in Asia, you will see a lot of children admitted for diarrhea, because the parents, when they give the food, especially for a small baby, they have to be very careful. You have to clean your hands before feeding the baby, so like that, and you have to give water which is boiled, because a child's stomach is like a pure place. It has not got used to the surroundings. We are all used to having so much of contamination in our body, but the child is just born, it doesn't have any contamination. So when this rotavirus enters, it causes such a problem that diarrhea and vomiting leads to dehydration. And in our country, we have poor health education. A lot of mothers and grandparents, what they give is, they give wrong treatment, and that leads to, and sometimes what the practice is in our rural area or villages, they say if the child is having diarrhea, don't give food for one day, it will become all right. So what will happen is, when you don't give food or water, the child gets more dehydrated and finally dies. So 37% of all child deaths because of diarrhea is caused because of rotavirus. So diarrheal deaths is very very common in India in children. Then other than that, parasites, amoeba, all this can cause a lot of people, adults get amoebiasis when you eat in hotels or when you eat in roadside shops. One of the common side effects is amoebiasis. This leads to severe diarrhea and gastritis. So we have already seen the symptoms of food poisoning: nausea, stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, dehydration. Some of the serious complications is because of dehydration it can lead to kidney failure, chronic arthritis, brain damage, nerve damage, and even death. So to prevent dehydration, the person has to drink water, boiled water with salt and sugar. That is what you get in Electrol when you go to the shop. They have Electrol that helps in re-energizing your body if you're having food poisoning. The other thing is you have to go to the hospital to check your stomach if you have severe gastritis and diarrhea. The people who are at risk, I already told: children younger than 5 years, adults more than 65 years, pregnant women, and also people whose immune system is weak. For example, we have studied about HIV. Those people have weak immune system, so they have to be very careful in what they eat. Even people who have cancer, their immune system is weak, they also have to be very careful. So how do we prevent and treat this problem of food poisoning? Prevention, we already told: storage should be proper, preservation should be proper, handling of food should be proper, and good hygiene is needed. So you should wash hands with soap before you handle food products, and it should be cooked at the right temperature. If you cook at especially meat, if it is not boiled properly, if it is not cooked properly, then it can have a lot of bacteria or parasites which can lead to severe food poisoning. And preservation, as I said, chilling or freezing should be very done carefully, and this will help in preventing contamination. All people who handle food should wash hands regularly. That will reduce the chances of food poisoning. Then water is one of the common causes of having stomach upsets and poor quality of water, or if the water is not clean, then it leads to it's not food poisoning, but actually it causes the same symptoms as food poisoning. And if you use the water, unclean water, in your cooking, and if it's not boiled properly, all these bacteria can stay in the food, which can have similar effects. So the water has to be boiled, or clean water should be used. So how do we prevent? Some vaccination is available for some of the pathogens, especially for things like rotavirus. There is vaccination available. So if even the cricketers who come from foreign countries, when they come to India, they have vaccination for all this before they come, because otherwise they get some stomach upsets when they come to Asian countries, not just India but Asian countries generally. So antibiotics are not generally used unless the person is having severe problems, and that will help in overcoming the food poisoning. WHO, mainly the effort that is done is to educate the public so that they know the risk of diarrheal deaths, especially in children, and they ensure that dehydration is prevented, and also proper handling, storage, and of food is done, and hand hygiene and general hygiene is maintained. This will help in completely removing food poisoning from the people. Other thing, in our villages and even in cities, when people are giving midday meals for the school students, they have to be very careful. They have to close the vessels properly. Even in our own houses, we have to keep our vessels which have food items closed, because lizards or other things can fall into it that can lead to food poisoning. So that is proper storage and closing the vessels will all help in preventing the food poisoning from occurring. So with this, we have completed the third chapter. We'll see you in the fourth chapter. Thank you.